Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel for a brand new mystery with Molly, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the case of Sophie Hook. Today's video is actually in collaboration with one of my best friends here on YouTube, Zoe Wallace. Zoe's actually doing a collab week this week, so as soon as you watch this video make sure you head on straight over to her channel to watch the video that we did over there. But yeah, like I said, today me and Zoe are going to be discussing the case of Sophie Hook, and I just want to let you guys know that today we are going to be talking about child murder. So as usual, if that's something that you think you are very sensitive to, please don't watch this video. I just want to clarify that my intent with these videos is never to offend or upset anyone that may have been involved in the case. All the information I have found on this video has been from several different sources online, such as articles and documentaries and stuff like that. So I do apologise if anything is incorrect, or if you think that I'm missing out, then please let me know in the comments. And having said all of that, let's just get into today's case. So Sophie Hook was a 7-year-old girl born on the 27th of May 1988 from Cheshire in England. Sophie's parents, Julie and Christopher Hook, also had another child, so Sophie's older sister, Gemma, who was 9 years old at the time of Sophie's murder. And Sophie was described by her family as a very bubbly, a very vivacious, a very friendly young girl. In July of 1995, Sophie and the rest of her family all travelled from Cheshire to Llandudno in North Wales, I'm sorry I'm probably not pronouncing that right, to go and stay with Sophie's aunt and uncle Fiona and Danny Jones, just for a little kind of holiday, a little kind of breakaway. On July the 29th, it was a hot summer's day, and so the whole family decided to have a barbecue in the back garden. And all of the children, so Sophie, her sister and her cousins, were all playing in the paddling pool in their underwear because, like I said, it was a hot summer's day and they were in the company of their family. And later that night, all of the children were allowed to sleep in a tent in the back garden as a kind of summer holiday treat, which they were all really looking forward to.
In the early hours of the morning, around 12:20 AM, one of the children decided to go inside the house as they didn't want to sleep in the tent anymore. And then about 10 minutes later, Sophie's uncle Danny went into the garden to check on the children. And he left the back door open in case any of the children wanted to go back inside. At 2:30 AM in the morning, Sophie's cousin woke up and realised that Sophie was sleeping in between him and his sister Gemma. However, later that morning at 7:15 AM, Sophie was gone from the tent. Her cuddle toy was still in the tent and her sleeping bag was on the grass outside. But for some reason, Sophie was nowhere to be seen. So we went inside the house to see if Sophie was in there, but she wasn't. So he told the adults that he couldn't find Sophie, and they instantly started looking around the local areas for her. But at 8:20 AM, it had been around an hour since the family started looking for Sophie, so they decided to contact the police and report her as missing. However, sadly, by the time they made the phone call, it was too late. Sophie's body had already been found.
Her body was found at around 7:10 AM by a man named Jerry Davis. Jerry was out walking his dog along the shore of a beach in Llandudno when he saw something next to the swimming pool that he initially thought was a very pale looking tailor's dummy or mannequin. However, when Jerry got closer, he realised that it was actually the naked body of a young girl, and so Jerry took his t-shirt off and placed it over this young girl's body so that she wasn't fully naked anymore, so that she wasn't exposed, and he ran to the nearest phone box to contact police. So police arrived at the scene and immediately Sophie's body was taken for an autopsy. Meanwhile, news about Sophie's death was just spreading so quickly throughout the town of Llandudno and everyone was just in a complete state of shock. Sophie's autopsy revealed that she was unfortunately subject to a very brutal attack. She was absolutely covered in bruises head to toe. Both her upper right arm and her right ankle had been broken, and she had also suffered internal bleeding. Most of Sophie's injuries were actually inflicted on her body before her death, and so Sophie was in so much pain during the attack that she actually had teeth marks on both sides of her tongue and lower lip. In fact, Sophie's injuries were so bad that they were comparable to injuries sustained in a major car crash. Sadly, 7-year-old Sophie Hook had also been raped and sodomized. However, her official cause of death was found to have been from manual strangulation. And after she was killed, her body was obviously thrown in the sea by her killer, probably in an attempt to get rid of any DNA or forensic evidence on her body. So because news of Sophie's murder had spread so quickly around the local areas, police were inundated inundated with calls regarding Sophie's case. Several witnesses came forward to say that the day before Sophie's murder on the 29th of July 1995, they saw a man near Sophie's uncle's house being really weird, just acting really suspicious. Basically, behind these houses, behind Sophie's uncle's house at the rear of the property, there was a concealed bridle path, and a lot of people would walk along this path, walk their dogs and stuff like that. And reports kept coming into police about people seeing the same man, the same very tall man, on the bridle path at several different times in the day before Sophie's murder. And the man that was spotted by several witnesses on this path was 30-year-old Howard Hughes. Howard was seen on his bike cycling up and down this bridle path several times the day before Sophie's murder. And one woman who came forward said that she actually saw Howard crouching in the bushes behind Sophie's uncle's house, which obviously she thought was really weird. And like I said, at the start of the case, Sophie and the rest of the children were all playing in their underwear in the garden, and they were all talking about how they were going to stay in the tent that night. This woman obviously asked Howard what he was doing. He was crouching in the bushes behind someone's property, and so, like I said, she thought this was really weird and odd, so she asked him what he was doing, and Howard actually said that he was looking for some money that he had lost in the bush. I believe one of the witnesses who came forward to police actually knew Howard because he was quite well known in the local area. He had lived there all his life, and so when this witness came forward to police obviously knew exactly who to arrest. And at around 4 p.m. on the same day that Sophie's body was found, Howard Hughes was arrested at his home on suspicion of the murder of 7-year-old Sophie Hook. And when police took a look into Howard's history, they realised that this wasn't the first time he had been involved with the law for a very similar crime.
Howard was born on the 9th of June 1965 to his parents Gerald and Renee Hughes. Howard was born with a chromosome abnormality disorder called XYY syndrome. Basically, men who are born with this have an extra Y chromosome in most or all their cells. Side effects associated with this disorder include being taller than average, and this was definitely the case for Howard. By the age of 11, Howard was already 6 foot tall, and this is incredibly tall for an 11-year-old boy. And when he was a full-grown adult, he was 6 foot 8. And witnesses who saw a man on the bridle path the day before Sophie's murder described the man as being very tall. Boys with this disorder can also have delayed development in their learning skills. Howard himself had learning difficulties and dyslexia. However, other side effects that can stem from this disorder are things like behavioural problems and an explosive temper, and that is definitely something Howard had. When he was a child, Howard's father actually sent him to a private school in hopes that this would help his behavioural problems. Howard was rejected from the school after 2 terms, despite his parents offering to pay double the tuition if they kept him on. When he was a teenager, Howard left school without any qualifications. And when he was 16 years old in 1981, Howard took a 7-year-old boy into an abandoned house where he exposed himself in front of the boy before trying to strangle him. Thankfully, the boy survived, but it was only because he played dead. So Howard left that house that day thinking he killed a 7-year-old boy. He was convicted for assaulting the boy, and he was placed under a 2-year mental health supervision order. When he was released, he returned to live with his mum in North Wales. And by the age of 19, Howard had 19 separate criminal convictions, all for things such as burglary, assault, theft, criminal damage, threatening behaviour, motoring offences and possession of weapons. Howard had also been accused of indecently exposing himself to 3 different girls on 3 different occasions, and these girls were aged 3, 5 and 9. However, all the charges have dropped, and one of them was dropped because the young girl's parents didn't want her to go through the whole ordeal of everything going to trial and everything being relived. It was also later revealed that the day before Sophie's murder, Howard had actually tried to abduct a 6-year-old girl from a local park, but luckily the girl managed to run away from him.
But back to where we were in the case, 30-year-old Howard Hughes has just been arrested for the murder of 7-year-old Sophie Hook on the 30th of July 1995. Howard was kept in custody for 4 days, however, due to lack of evidence linking him to the crime, police had to actually let him go. However, Howard was rearrested that same day just a few hours later on the 3rd of July 1995 after police found indecent images of children on his computer after a search of his home. And so, like I said, he was arrested again and he was once again charged with the murder of Sophie Hook. But Howard wasn't giving anything up. He was denying any involvement in the murder, and so he entered a plea of not guilty, and so a trial had to be set. During the trial, the jury were not presented with any kind of physical, forensic or DNA evidence linking Howard to the crime because, well, there wasn't any. Sophie's body was obviously dumped in water by her killer, and so any forensic or DNA evidence that there would have just been washed away. And so because of the fact that they didn't have any forensic or DNA evidence linking Howard to the crime, the prosecution turned to 3 key witnesses. One of these witnesses being Howard Hughes' own father, Gerald, who actually told the jury that Howard had admitted to Sophie's murder. Gerald claimed that Howard had actually told him that he had killed Sophie after being arrested and being held in custody. The second key witness in the trial was a man named Jonathan Carroll, who on the night of Sophie's murder was actually attempting to steal some property from someone's back garden when he saw Howard carrying a sack along the street in Llandudno. And when Jonathan caught a glimpse inside this sack that Howard was carrying, he saw what he thought looked like a naked body. Jonathan was actually in prison at the time that he testified in court against Howard for his attempt at stealing property that night. So basically, Jonathan gave himself up to police so that he could provide evidence in this case. And the third witness was convicted sex offender Michael Guidi, who I believe was old friends with Howard Hughes. Michael said that a few years before Sophie's murder, Howard had actually confessed to him that he wanted to rape a girl of 4 or 5. The jury also heard details about Sophie's attack and the amount of injuries that she had sustained, most of which were inflicted before her death, like I said earlier. And so, of course, with all of the witness statements against Howard Hughes, he was ultimately found guilty on the 18th of July 1996 for the kidnap, rape and murder of 7-year-old Sophie Hook. Howard was given 3 life sentences and a whole life tariff, meaning that he would never be released from prison. However, Howard actually appealed against his sentence in 1997, and it was actually kind of successful. Howard's sentence was changed so that the minimum amount of time he is to spend in prison is now actually 50 years, meaning that he will be eligible for parole in 2045 when he is 81 years old. So basically, like I said, he was sentenced to a whole life tariff, meaning that he would never get out of prison, but then he appealed against his sentence and he was given a minimum of 50 years. So he could be released one day. And that is pretty much everything that I could find on this case. A huge thank you to Zoe for collabing with me on this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said at the start of the video, we also filmed a video over on Zoe's channel, so make sure you go and watch that video after this one. I will link Zoe's channel in the iCard and also in the description of this video. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and if you're new here, please do subscribe to my channel so that you can be a part of the Mystery with Molly clan, club. I don't know, we need a name for that. And I will see you again very, very soon for another video. Bye guys.